You know what I like in the Gevurot part? Through us, you lift up the fallen. And it's a reminder that we are the conduit through which God's. Always good to be reminded. I wanted to talk to you about this week's Torah portion. I don't know if you have a minute. This week's Torah portion is the second Torah portion in the book of Exodus, and we are going full speed in that story, let me tell you that. I am always shocked when I open the second Torah portion of the book of Exodus to see how far we've gone already. There's so much in that first Torah portion. Everything is crammed in there. Right now, as we open that Parshat, that portion, we find Moses ready to go and talk to Pharaoh about, you should let the Israelites go. Wait a minute. So we've missed a lot. Let me bring you up to speed. What we've missed in the first Torah portion is we came down to Egypt. The Israelites, we came down to Egypt, and to us it was a promised land. We got the best land there, the land of Goshen. And we had a blast. We became fruitful, we multiplied, we were extremely wealthy, and the Torah says, and the land was filled with us. We were everywhere. We were in Hollywood, we were getting all the Oscars, we were the doctors, we were the surgeons, we were Nobel Peace Prize, the bankers, the lawyers, the journalists. We took it all over. Finally. And then there arose a Pharaoh in Egypt who didn't know Joseph. Joseph was the one who helped Pharaoh consolidate his power. He was instrumental, according to the story, to really found the empire that Egypt was. But then there arose in Egypt a Pharaoh that didn't know anything about Joseph. And all that Pharaoh could see was how numerous we had become, how wealthy we have become, how we were threatening to take everything over. So he wrote very quickly the Protocol of the Elders of Zion. We think it was the Russian the Russian Secret Services who wrote it, but in fact they copied it over from Egyptian hieroglyphs. No, I'm just making it up. The truth is, he was really scared and afraid of us because we were threatening to take over. And so he changed the rules over us. He was the first to have the Nuremberg laws posted everywhere. And he enslaved us. He made us slaves. And for generations, by the time Moses was born, we've been slaves for generations. We've been here for 400 years. So we've missed all of that. And in the meantime, we missed that Moses was born, that at some point he was a basket case, then eventually he was rescued by Pharaoh's daughter, and he was raised as a prince in Egypt. And we missed all that because at some point he also goes out in the field when he's already like a teenager or something, and he kills one of the taskmasters who was beating up one of the Israelites, and he had a moment of heart opening. And then he has to flee because that's not going to bode well with Pharaoh. And we skipped all that. And then there's like decades when he's gone. He becomes a shepherd, he gets married, he studies under this prince, this priest in Midian. And then there's a whole thing about this burning bush thing where the voice of God comes booming through the fire and tells him, "Hey Mo, you got to go and get my people out of Egypt. They are under great suffering." And Moses' reaction, first thing he says, "No way, Jose. I can't do that. I'm just a shepherd. I barely can keep my sheep together." "So you want me to take care of yours?" It ain't gonna work. And God got very angry, actually. God really got really angry at him and said, you know what? You're going to go anyways. So Moses said, okay, I'll go, but you're going to have to get me some help. So he said, I'll send your brother Aaron. And he'll do the talking, you'll do the doing. Between the two of you, we have a chance. So Moses went back. It took a long time. And here it was just second Torah portion. We skip over all of that, and now Moses is in Egypt. And something very interesting happens. Something very fascinating happens. I don't know why I'm holding this. I need hands. I'm from the Middle East. So, something very interesting happened because we forget. We think that God tells Moses, go talk to Pharaoh. But there's a step before that we don't pay attention to. God actually doesn't say directly to Moses, go talk to Pharaoh. The first thing God says to Moses is, go talk to the Israelites. Which makes sense. Go talk to the Israelites, tell them, I have heard their outcry, I know their suffering, I have come to free them, and you are the hands through which that is going to happen. Go tell them. And he goes and he tells them the four promises of redemption that are actually copied over from the Torah and put in the Passover Haggadah, the four promises of redemption that gives us the 4 cups of wine, that gives us the 4 blessings, the 4 songs. Everything is multiples of 4 because of that specific passage in the Torah. Top of my head, the first promise. So Moses goes and he speaks to the whole assembly of Israel, channeling the voice of God. God says to them through Moses, I am the eternal one, your God. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. And I've come here to free you from bondage, to redeem you, to liberate you, and to take you as a people for me, and for me to be your God. And then there is a 5th promise, which is why we have the cup of Elijah. Because the rabbis don't know if it was a real promise or not a real promise, because the 5th is, and I will bring you to the promised land. I will bring you to the land of Canaan, or the land that I promised your forefathers. And since they're not going to be the ones going into the promised land, I think that's where the rabbi are kind of like, do we include that as a 5th one or not? And that's where we have the cup of Elijah. We're waiting for Elijah to come at the end of Passover Seder to tell us whether or not we should drink the 5th cup, because yes, we need to include the 5th promise. But that's what happens. Moses goes and tells the Israelites 4 times, or maybe 5 times, we are here, God is here to liberate you. Come on over. And then the Torah continues. I mean, that's a pretty big deal, but the Torah continues and says, but the Israelites couldn't hear what Moses was saying on behalf of God. Mikutzer ruach, it says in Hebrew, literally from shortness of spirit. Aveda kasha, and from hard enslavement, from heavy enslavement. They couldn't hear. So God changes tactics. That's when God decides, okay, it doesn't look like it's going to work. Moses, you're going to have to go and talk to Pharaoh. And tell Pharaoh to let my people go. That's what it says in the Torah. I mean, it's the verse that follows. Go tell Pharaoh to let my people go. We know that. And let me tell you what I'm going to do. As you tell Pharaoh to do what I say, I'm also going to harden his heart so that he'll change his mind, which will allow me to display all kinds of signs and wonders and plagues in the land of Egypt. Now go tell him. So that's interesting because all this time, we've been thinking, first of all, we didn't remember that Moses talked to the Israelites first, which is critical. And we've been thinking that Moses goes to Pharaoh tells him, free the Israelites. Pharaoh goes, all right, okay, let's do that. And then Pharaoh changes his mind and says, you know what? No, we're not going to do that. And Moses says, oh, you're not going to do that? Plague number 1. Blood in the water. And then Moses comes back to Pharaoh, so what now? Would you let my people go? And Pharaoh says, yeah, let's do that. It's a good idea. And then Pharaoh changes his mind. And remember that. It happens 10 times. Time and time again, Moses goes and says, let us go. Okay. No, I changed my mind. Plague. And God seems to be playing both sides. So what will it be? Does God want the Israelites to go? Or does God want the Israelites to stay? Why is God hardening Pharaoh's heart every time? Why is God changing Pharaoh's mind every time? What sick game is this God of ours playing? What's going on here is that we've forgotten the little phrase that that God told Moses before he went to Pharaoh. When he said, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart so that I can display my signs and wonders, so that I can show off. I can do all the miracle things, and I can do all the plagues. So unless God is an egomaniac that really is looking to show off to the world and display his strength and power, we have to understand this a little bit differently. And the way we have to understand this is that we have to come to realize that the strategy of sending Moses to Pharaoh was not in response, or not because God wanted the Israelites to leave. It was because God wanted the Israelites to wake up. God wanted to break the spell of them being kotzer ruach, of them being short of spirit, of them being crippled by labor, by that hardness of slavery. The plagues were not for the Egyptians. They were for us. They were for us. Because we had reached a state in consciousness after 400 years of slavery that was so diminished, was so narrow. We had become Egypt. Egypt is Mitzrayim in Hebrew, and Mitzrayim means narrow space. We had become Egypt. Our consciousness was narrowed so much. We could only see today, we could only live as slaves. We had become slaves ourselves. Slavery, the deepest levels of slavery is when we no longer know we are slaves. That after 400 years, it became our way of life. It became who we were. We had no idea we were slaves. That was just the way it was. Yeah, it was painful. Yes, it wasn't happy. But we were born into it. Generation after generation. So for us, that was what it is. We lived our life in that kind of narrow consciousness, oblivious to the deeper dimension of being, to our own spiritual self. We could only do day in and day out what we were told to do. It's like we were broken. We were on this treadmill. We got up in the morning, we get to work, we had a half-hour lunch maybe, and we go back to work, and we work until nighttime, hours on end, and we go home, and we do the same thing the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. There was no Shabbat. Shabbat is going to come a little later. We were on that rat kind of a life. Well, all that we knew to do is to do, and we had forgotten to be. And God saw that. And God thought, there's no point of getting these people, manu military, out of Egypt. They have to get Egypt out of themselves first. They had to break open. They had to get some kind of freedom from within. And that's why the plagues. And we know how it works because we know this in our lives. This is not about an ancient people some thousands of years ago. This is about you, this is about me, this is about us, and the way we also become unconscious, the way we also live a life oftentimes devoid of spirit. We are so much in the doing, so much in the repetition of the things we do every day. We narrow our consciousness, we narrow our beingness. And sometimes a plague comes and hit us with a 2x4 over the head. We go, oh wow, wait a minute, there's more. But then then it's Monday morning and we have to go to work. So the meditation retreat was nice, but now what? And that's what happens. We go back into the rut and our heart hardens again. It's not Pharaoh's heart, it's the Pharaoh within. And we forget. Until the next plague comes around and go hit us in the rear and say, oh, yes, I remember. And you know what it takes? I mean, the sages, our rabbis are looking at the 10 plagues, and each of the 10 plagues, each of the plague is actually a negation of the 10 pronouncements of creation. God hits the water first, in the story of creation. The waters, the separation from the waters of above and the waters of below. The beasts that die with all kinds of diseases. The insects that come and swarm. And all of those are aspects of the 10 utterances of the first 5-6 days of creation. Darkness, the 9th plague. It's the opposite of let there be light. So each plague is a destruction. Each plague is a reverting. Each plague comes to almost destroy our way of life. And sometimes we feel like, oh my God, maybe that's what is happening. I mean, look at what's happening. How many times are we going to need Lower Manhattan to be flooded, New Orleans to be destroyed before we go, oh, we have a problem with global warming? One plague. I mean, that plague has been hitting us over and over again. We still haven't woken up to it. How many times are we going to have to see children die in our schools to know we have a gun problem in this country? How many young black men are going to die at the hands of policemen or other white folks to realize that we have a racism problem in this country? Not just in this country. I mean, did you see what happened in France? I mean, yes, we can think about it as, the freedom of the press and the freedom of expression, that's great. But there's another side to that. The other side to that is an endemic racism towards the Muslims in France. And I know because I was born and raised there. And that's also part of the picture. Literally part of the picture, in fact. And we need to be aware of that. And then we can look into our own lives, and I don't know. But sometimes and oftentimes, unfortunately, it takes moments of darkness, hardship, for us too to go, oh, I need to pay attention to this. This is an opportunity for growth. This is an opportunity for shifting my awareness, my consciousness, for getting out of the rut that has put me to sleep in my life. It would be so nice, though. I mean, it would be so nice if we could just buy the book, the book. Buy the book. Or go to the Alef weekend meditation retreat, and there. Or do this intense yoga training for a few weeks, and bliss out of awakening. Just simply bliss out and just read the pages and go, oh yes, I get it. But it doesn't work this way, does it? I mean, it would be so nice if an enlightened teacher will knock at our door and say, "Hi, I'm speaking on behalf of the Eternal One. I will free you. I will deliver you. I will liberate you. I will bring you out to a promised land. You will be my people and I will be your God. Come along." And we'd say, "Sure, let me just pack my bags." But it's not what we do, is it? I love that in the Torah. I mean, the Torah is so clear, so perfectly aware of our human nature. Because that teacher tomorrow comes, walk through your door, say exactly what Moses said, and you're going to go, I got an appointment at 4 o'clock. So, go talk to Pharaoh. I mean, we laugh because we know it's true. Because every Messiah that has ever come to that planet, what have we done to them? We've killed them. We can't handle that. God knew. He said, he's going to have to awaken from within them. If he doesn't awaken from within them, they're never going to get out. They're never going to get out. And you know how they work? They need plagues. Oy. So what in your life? What in your life right now is a place of stuckness? I mean, this is not just a good story. If this is a true story, it's a story that touches our heart right now. It's a story that is relevant to our life right now. And all of us, whether we want to look at it or not, in some place in our life, we're stuck. So this Torah portion is there to ask us, where is it that you're stuck? What is it that you refuse to let go of? What are the worldview, the thinking, the truth with a little t, but the truth that you are holding on to, that no longer serve you. In fact, they're holding you back. But you're so afraid of letting go, because if you let go, you have to step into this place called wilderness. And wilderness is a hard place to be. We'd rather be enslaved, because at least our place of stuckness is a known place. It's a nice, confined box, and we know who we are there. But that's not helping us grow and evolve and expand and be more loving and be more true. So what is it? What is it within you that is yearning to break free from these patterns that have been pulling you down for too long? What is it within you that is yearning to say yes? For there is a Moses within. Just as there is a Pharaoh within. Just like there is a slave within. We are all the characters of that story. Just like there is the divine within. And that divine and that Moses is telling our inner Pharaoh, do not fear. He's telling our inner Pharaoh, let the parts of self that need to be let go, that need to be released, let them go. Let them be. Let them flow. So this is our work. This is our work, and it starts right here, right now. Awareness. Awareness is the first step toward liberation. And it takes one to be ruthlessly honest with oneself. To look at ourselves straight in the eye and to really, 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 really see without denial that one place where we know ourselves to be stuck this year, this 2015.